We're live.
Hi.
Being live on Facebook. Thank you so much for being here with us. If you're watching on Facebook and you'd like to join us in our Zoom room, we will post the link in the comments section, and you can join through there. We're very excited today. We have His Grace Mahatma Prabhu with us, who is quite a uh, prolific speaker, and so we're feeling very fortunate and happy to have him with us today. And we believe he'll be speaking about the psychological necessities of spiritual life, and kind of how do we stay happy even as devotees, and how do we take care of ourselves both physically, subtly, and spiritually, and mentally. So before that, while we're waiting for Prabhu to arrive, we'll have Sarvatma Prabhu, who's looking pretty mysterious right now because he's against the window, but I think that's kind of cool looking. And we'll have Sarvatma Prabhu lead us in some kirtan. If you've never done kirtan before, and this is the first time ever hearing about kirtan, it's call and response mantra meditation. Feel free to chant along at home. Sarvatma Prabhu will be chanting the Maha Mantra, and we'll sing at our respective locations, filling the air with sacred sound. So Sarvatma Prabhu, whenever you're ready, we'll go to about 5:15 until Mahatma Prabhu arrives.
To make it a little stronger.
What'd you say?
Okay, I'm ready to go.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare.
Hare Krishna.
Hari Bolo.
Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Welcome.
We have a few more minutes if you'd like to continue, or I can lead a short one because
Yeah, please do. Please do.
Yeah, we'll do a short little kirtan with the ukulele as well. Oh, Hare Krishna Mahatma Prabhu.
Jai, Hari Bolo.
So nice to see you.
Oh, I was told to come late, so I came late.
Great. Yeah, you came right on time.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, you're like the
There's my soul brother, Saratma,
Hey, how are you, brother?
to keep us entertained. Hare Krishna. Can you hear me well? I have my air conditioning on.
Yeah, we can hear you wonderfully. We're so happy. We're so happy you agreed to come on today. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
So I'll give a little introduction. Mahatma Prabhu is a disciple of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. He's also an initiating spiritual master in ISKCON. He's known for taking the vast body of bhakti scriptures and bringing them down into a very practical and applicable concepts for devotees all over the world. He's a source of great inspiration to our community and to communities all around the world. His most recent book that was at least printed and is available is Living the Wisdom of Bhakti, and we'll put some links in the chat section as well as links to his website where he has many recorded talks and his recorded music and so many other wonderful things. And you can also catch Mahatma Prabhu every morning on Facebook at it's 8 a.m. Eastern time, correct, Prabhu?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, 8 a.m. Eastern time.
Monday through Friday.
Monday through Friday, a morning class, 8 a.m. Eastern time. And so we'll recircle that information as well. But I'll stop there. Mahatma Prabhu, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Ananda. Namo Vishnu Padaya, Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale, Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi, Gauravani Pachani, Nivisesa Sinivari Krishna. So, I was asked to speak on something that I spoke on a few weeks ago. And just like Lord Chaitanya, when he was asked, can you explain the Atmarama verse as you explained to Sarvabhauma? And he said, I can't remember what I said. So I think Ananda Murari and Vrinda, you probably can kind of push me on in a particular direction, maybe with some questions or remind me what I spoke about or what you had in mind that you wanted to cover. So we make sure that what you want me to talk about is I stay on course. I mean, I kind of remember what I said, but you may be thinking of something, a certain direction, and I'm not thinking of that direction. So you want to kind of sort me out? And
well, we were pretty open, Prabhu. I think your reflections on, mental well-being, psychological well-being amongst devotees, I think was very important. And just the kind of, way in which that bhakti is a holistic practice. It's not just it's not I can just neglect certain aspects of my life, and then still have the enthusiasm to practice as I should. That actually by living holistically, then we can practice.
Well, I think what was happening to me is I became a little interested in psychology and how the mind works, and I started noticing things that Prabhupada was saying that were very similar to what psychologists were saying, and I wouldn't have known it was similar unless I studied it. And then I started putting pieces together, and I started seeing problems that we thought were spiritual that weren't always spiritual, or only partly spiritual, or were sometimes completely psychological, and it was just having ill effects on one's spiritual life. And I can give an example, and this kind of stimulated me to go more into this. So in that book that you showed, Living the Wisdom of Bhakti, there's a chapter called Self-Envy, something like self-envy and something. Maybe self-envy and self-compassion. And so the devotee who was editing it is a Prabhupada disciple, and she got really mad at me. The only Prabhupada disciples who ever get mad at me are women. They're like sisters, and when I do something wrong, they chastise me. And of course, Sarvatma chastises me also, but he's in his own category. So so she got really mad at me, and she said, you can't use this word self-envy. That's like New Age, warm and fuzzy talk and psychology. I said, Prabhupada uses that word. And she said, I don't believe you. And I gave her 5 quotes, I think, where Prabhupada used that word. And Prabhupada used it in the context, which was very similar to the concept in psychology of you have to love yourself to be productive and balanced and healthy. And he was saying that if you go off somewhere, no one's around, and you want to kill yourself, nobody can stop you. And that's a kind of self-envy. And then he was asked, well, what do you mean by self-envy? Because self-envy, in a sense, doesn't make sense, because you would be envious of somebody else because they have what you want. Why would you be envious of yourself? And Prabhupada said, it's because you have a chance to be Krishna conscious and you don't take advantage. So you're actually envious of yourself. And in Sanskrit, the word envy sometimes is used as harm. Like Prabhupada said, if you eat meat, you're envious of the cows. And like you go up to some guy at McDonald's, you go, you're envious of cows, don't you? And it wouldn't make sense. But it means violence. It's also a definition of envy, hatred, violence, aggression. So in that sense, Prabhupada was saying, you're envious of your own self because you're doing something that's harming yourself. And then I started thinking about this, and I'm just thinking, okay, anything I do in Krishna consciousness that is not helping me, especially things that I'm doing that go against my self-interest, it's self-envy. And what would counteract self-envy? Right? Do you ever like know you have to do something and you just say, I don't care, I'll do it tomorrow? You ever say that? It's a kind of self-envy. It's like you're not taking care of yourself. Don't eat that, it's not good for you. I don't care, it's okay. It'll make you fat. I don't care. It's like you don't care about yourself. And so in order to be Krishna conscious, you have to care about your spiritual life. If you don't care, then what happens? You just don't try, and it doesn't matter if you don't do well. So I was seeing this a lot, especially with sadhana and especially with japa, because people would say, I haven't chanted a good round in like 14 years. That would be common. When was the last time you chanted good japa? I don't remember, Prabhu. Or it was one mantra, I think it was last September, maybe it was 2018 actually. I'm serious, it sounds funny, but a lot of times it's like that. And so I'm thinking, how could you go week after week, month after month, year after year, and chant bad japa? There must be something somewhere where you just don't care. Like, I don't care. And then I started asking devotees, well, are you planning to go back to Godhead? Are you working on that? And they say things like, no, not in this life. I don't think so. And I was thinking, you don't care? Prabhupada said in one life you can do it, and you're not trying and you don't care? Like, something's going on here. No, they'll say I'm too attached, or I'm not that serious, or I'm not that austere. So I was kind of seeing this coming up, this like lack of caring about themselves. And you know, in the world of psychology, they talk a lot about self-love, which is what people lack when they have low self-esteem. And then I kind of got this reputation as a counselor because I talk about these things in my classes. And then people, they always come to me and say, I have this psychological problem. I think you're a psychologist. And I go, no, I'm not. They say, well, it seems like from your classes you are. Can you help me? So what was happening was most of what I was getting, especially from women, was low self-esteem. Like they didn't like themselves. They would do things that weren't healthy for themselves. And then I talked to a devotee named Rakura, who was very involved in this kind of work. And he was being trained by one of the best coaches in Europe. And the best coach in Europe said, he said it's epidemic. Lack of self-confidence and low self-esteem has now become epidemic, pandemic. And I was seeing that amongst devotees, like just this not caring. And then I realized just for a simple thing like chanting good japa to control your mind, you have to care a little bit about yourself. You can't just say, I don't care. Bad japa, whatever. And then after whatever, you know, the next one that comes after whatever, the ultimate excuse, I can't chant good japa. I tried. And so I was studying a little bit of self-development, and I was seeing all these seeds of what we would call disempowering self-talk amongst devotees, in the name, sometimes in the name of humility, but it was actually unhealthy psychology. It just looked like humility. And then I talked to a devotee, and she finally admitted. She said, I fake humility because I want people to like me and think I'm humble. So that's, you know, that's there also. The spiritual movement, you know, if you're humble, people will give you gold stars. So sometimes we do that. And so I was seeing there was a lot of unhealthy psychology going around. People berating themselves. And then just recently it happened. This always happens, but just recently it happened, like one after another after another. There, I don't know if you've been watching, but there's been some shows about domestic violence and abuse. And then all of a sudden people are writing me and saying, I think I was abused as a child and I never realized it. And now I'm starting to understand why I have all these problems. They're becoming aware because they look at the symptoms of abuse. And they go, well, yeah, that's exactly what my father did, or it's exactly what my ex-husband did. And they start to realize that they have trauma problems. I just was speaking a few hours ago to one woman, and her husband was so abusive to her, not physically or verbally, but by neglecting her. He never touched her. He never gave her anything. She went to a therapist, and the therapist said, you're traumatized by neglect. But she was neglected by her father and neglected by her husband. And so I've started to see all these kinds of things are coming up, and it's creating all kinds of instability in devotees' lives. And then you get these devotees with low self-esteem, and they have high expectations for their partners, and they have these very toxic, dysfunctional relationships because they're asking their partners to be and do things that no normal human being could do every day of their life. So it was, as I understood psychology, fortunately or unfortunately, I could kind of understand people. They would tell me their problems, and like 2 minutes, I'd say, okay, I think I got it. And I would tell them the rest of the problem. They go, how did you know that? They go, because I've heard it like 100 times this week. I know it's like Kali Yuga and everybody's going through it. So, and then I was starting to analyze the counseling I was doing and the help I was giving. And other gurus have said this also, that most of it is not spiritual, it's psychological. The problems people have are because when I was young, this and that, and my father was never this, my mother that, and my mother's an alcoholic. And then you start studying. It's like there's all kinds of problems you have if you have an absentee parent, if you come from a divorced family, if you have an alcoholic parent. And nowadays, because of Google, you can find out why you're so messed up. You go, oh, that's why I'm messed up, because my parents were alcoholics, or my father was neglected my mother, or my mother, you know, tormented my father. And so everyone's a little messed up, but what I'm seeing lately is a lot of people are very messed up, and it's becoming quite common. The other thing that's happening, which is so sad, is that I was talking to a devotee from India, and he said practically the whole male population in India is addicted to pornography. It's like it's like it's like epidemic now because it's so easily available. And it's if you know anything about addictions, it just destroys your lives. I just spoke to a devotee. I just heard from a devotee, and he failed all his final exams because he's a sex addict and his mind got deviated. So these are realities that I've become aware of. And then I gave a whole class on how your psychology affects your japa, and that whole like I don't care syndrome, or you can't handle situations well and they disturb you, and then you're chanting japa and you're just thinking about everything that disturbs you, and just on and on and on. So that's where it all started. I think I knew too much, and too many people were coming to me, and I was beginning to understand what goes on behind the scenes that nobody knows about. And many, many of the things that devotees told me said I would never tell my spiritual master. The only people that know this are the counselors, and the only counselors that these people trust. But somehow other people would trust me. And I was getting this whole, you could say, like underwater vision of ISKCON and spiritual life behind the scenes. And if you talk practically to any devotee or most devotees, and you let them talk and say, how's it going, Prabhu? Is everything okay? If they know they can talk, they'll just, Pandora's box opens with all kinds of problems. If you're willing to listen. Everybody's got, not everybody, but a lot of people have a lot of issues. And because it's Kali Yuga, it's getting worse. So that's what I'm seeing. And then in our preaching, we're making people devotees, and we don't realize their psychological problems until they become devotees and they start working with us and associating with us, and committing to things that they can't do, and then overcommitting, and then being dishonest, and on and on and on. And it's like, what's going on? And you finally start having to dig, and you see that they've got all kinds of problems, and they're afraid to tell the truth, because if they tell the truth, when they were a kid, they told the truth and they got beat up and this and that. And it's just like, where does it end? So this is what I have been dealing with maybe for the last 15 years, just seeing this and talking to other counselors about it. And then you have the whole world of, the heavy classes. Those heavy classes, like, if you ever had a lustful thought once in your life, you're going to a planet where you'll have to embrace hot iron women or something, And then, you're a good devotee, and you get married, and you think everything's going to be great, and you mess up a little bit. And someone shames you. And so we find, and even if no one shames you, you shame yourself because you didn't follow your vows. And so we have this whole system where people are being invited to take initiation and take vows that everyone knows they can't follow. It's a ridiculous thing. In fact, I just wrote a paper on that this morning because it's so ridiculous when you think about it. They think they're going to follow, but deep down they know they can't perfectly follow. And their guru knows it'll be amazing if you follow. And they can't tell anybody they're not following, because then they won't get initiation. And if they're a brahmachari in India, they'll get kicked out of the ashram. So you have this whole thing going on of dishonesty, and people feeling guilty and they can't open up, and feeling shamed because they broke a principle. And they all come to me with this. This is what I'm seeing, like almost every day. And I'm seeing, like, okay, this guy needs to be married. In his present state of emotional immaturity and trauma, he will drive this woman crazy. This woman needs to get married. She's a nice devotee, but the only person I would marry her to is my enemy, because she's going to drive every man crazy. So, like, and she says, "Can you help me find a husband?" I don't know anybody I hate that much. I mean, seriously. I'm serious. It's like, so what do? very, and then you talk to the person, say, I was picked on by my mother, my father, my brothers, this and that, and that's why I'm so messed up. So, and then on top of all of this, and then I'm learning how to deal with this stuff. I'm educated, and I'm seeing it's helping devotees. Like, oh, thank you. I never knew that. It's helping me so much. And then you get all these guys, all you need is a chant Hare Krishna, Prabhu. None of this psychology stuff. That's no, Prabhupada never said it. And I'm like, or they ask the question, isn't chanting Hare Krishna enough? And I say, you can answer that yourself. Do you have any problems you haven't solved yet? Because if you do, maybe you either need to chant more purely, or you may need some other help in some other level. So we just started a group for sexual sobriety from men who have a very difficult time being celibate. And one of them is my disciples, and he came to me and he said, I can't do this. And one of my godbrothers has experience, and I said, what do we tell them? He said, send them to a 12-step program, because when they get to a certain point, they cannot help themselves. They're powerless. So he went to the 12-step program 3.5 years ago, and he has been completely celibate for 3.5 years because of that program. And he just wrote yesterday, we have a group for these men to support them. And he just wrote, he said, chanting, hearing Bhagavatam, I did it all. But this problem was so serious. It was so severe. I had to go to a 12-step program. Otherwise, I couldn't do it. So it's like, it's not a question. It's just a reality. And now he's celibate. And if you know anything about the 12-step program, it's all based on depending on God. I read their book. And you know what my reaction to their book was? It was so funny. They have a book. This was for sexaholics. It's the same principle of any of the addictions. They go through the same steps. And I read the book, and after I put the book down, you know what I said? I said, this book is more Krishna conscious than Krishna consciousness. It was like it, and what I meant by that is it took Krishna consciousness and put it into practical principles that you could apply to a specific problem, in this case, addiction. So it was like more Krishna conscious in the sense that everything was about God, depending on God, being humble, being forgiving, and self-introspection. And I'm reading chapter after chapter, and I'm thinking, this is amazing that we as devotees never put a program like this together to help devotees who are addicted to alcohol or drugs or sex or gambling or codependency or whatever. So, and then I realized there's no program, when a devotee is a sexaholic, there's no program in ISKCON. You could go, okay, chant Hare Krishna, go to Bhagavatam class. But a lot of these guys are living in temples and they still have the problem. And then they go to these programs and I talk to them, they say, I'm celibate now, the problem's gone. As long as I have these programs, I can do it. And it's just basically Sangha and Krishna conscious principles in a self-development context. So it works. I've done maybe like 5 different self-development workshops. And in every workshop, I learned something about myself that has made me better able to function in relationships, better able to function materially, better able to function spiritually, and better able to function in my service. So not big things, but little things that I was blind to, that I was neglecting, I wasn't noticing. And part of what I learned in that was to notice what I wasn't noticing, to clear out blind spots. And I have to tell you a funny story. It's actually not funny. It's sad, but it's funny in a sad way. So I had gone to one of these workshops, and I was learning from them because I wanted to apply. I really like what they were doing. They had a spiritual foundation, and I wanted to apply it in what I was teaching. So I was taking their course their secondary course to learn how to teach their course because I wanted to apply it. And I had just come back from that course and been with all the people who took the course. And these people are just like very open, very humble and cleansing and working on their stuff and looking at their stuff. And these people have really progressed very far in dealing with their own personal issues. And then I went to a devotee program, and a devotee had some training in self-development. He was asking devotees to share their challenges. And they were all sharing challenges, which kind of sounded to me after coming from that workshop like they were all dysfunctional people, because no one in that workshop had the challenges that the devotees had. These were all challenges that they brought in before they were devotees. It never got fixed as devotees, just kind of got swept under the rug in the name of just preach and chant. And they carried these dysfunctions with them, and they're discussing them. And I just come back from this workshop and I'm thinking, this is so sad that in the Hare Krishna movement, which is supposed to be the solution to all the problems, all the devotees are talking about problems that in this other seminar nobody has, because they've already worked through them through the steps they go through. So that was kind of like the icing of depression on the cake of we need to address these issues. Not all of us necessarily, but a lot of us. And those who are qualified to help in those areas can help tremendously. The other thing I'm seeing, my daughter just told me, 1 out of 5 women today, I think in the world, America or the world, have been sexually abused. I think if you go to South America, it's higher, or in some countries it's higher, as I was told. Nothing against South Americans. We love you, Argentinians. I give class in Argentina, Sarabama, and Brazil, and Bolivia, and Colombia. I love the South Americans, but this was just the statistics that was given to me. In those cultures, it's a little higher. So whatever the case is, it's higher today than it was when I was growing up. In fact, you might say when you were growing up, it was all hidden. Could be true, but I'm sure it has become worse. I think Kali Yuga has arrived ahead of schedule, and things are going bad very quickly. And so what I'm finding more and more with the young people coming, they're not like the young people that were coming 30, 40, 50 years ago. They're coming with a lot of problems that we didn't have. Because we had, when I grew up, I only knew of one divorce. In my whole neighborhood of all good friends, I only knew one divorce. Of course, it was illegal, so you couldn't get it. But it's just that it was a very stable situation. And so I don't know what it's like to come from a divorced family, but I know it's difficult for many. And kids coming from families where they've been neglected and so forth, it's more common. So what you'll notice now is that the people who are joining, they're coming with more problems than they used to. And it seems that as preachers, not only do we have to give philosophy, but we're going to have to learn, if we don't know how to do, we're going to have somebody that can help them, because a lot of those problems just get in the way of their Krishna consciousness, and they can't execute Krishna consciousness well because they're so disturbed. You know that kind of devotee that he criticizes everybody? You know that kind? It's a disease. It's not like the kind of devotee he's criticizing because he wants to help or he's just having fun making jokes, but it's like their self-esteem is like at zero, so they just pull everybody down to feel good. And they don't get along with people. There's devotees like that, and it's all internal issues. And we could say, you could preach to them, devotees are humble, devotees shouldn't criticize, etc., etc. But the fact is, they are programmed with such dysfunctions, they can't stop criticizing. So all the philosophy in the world doesn't work more than a day or two on them. Have you ever seen that? You know that class? You ever been to that class where it's like, wow, I'm never going to criticize again. Wow, I'm never going to get up late again. Wow, I'm never going to oversleep again. I'm never going to overeat again. Oh, wow, that was amazing. I'm going to chant good rounds the rest of my life. And like 3 days later, it's like, boom. It's like you ever seen that class? Now, if the class is good, you get 7 days. If it's amazing, you get 11 days. Those are the statistics from the Mahatma Purana. It's like, we all have this little hole of this. If you have this hole of dysfunction, you just fall back into your dysfunction after the inspiration is over. So we've all seen this. And so sometimes we're throwing philosophy at problems that can't be solved with philosophy. Of course, I'm not saying we don't need philosophy and philosophy is bad, but in some cases, this was my point when I was doing that last class. My point was sometimes you're throwing the wrong medicine at a problem. It's not a problem that needs philosophy. It's a problem that needs something else. Maybe the person just needs to talk. They just need a friend. Someone needs to help them understand why they're criticizing, what's going on, what are you lacking, what's missing, what needs aren't being fulfilled. There could be so many things. And sometimes we had this devotee in LA, I won't mention his name, this was in the late 70s. And if you didn't give lots of respect and special treatment to this devotee, he would get depressed. And he did a lot of service. So Rameshwar always made sure he had better prasadam. He had a cushion when no one had a cushion. He had a mat when no one had a mat to sleep on. We'd always take care of him. And then the devotee was very, very happy. And then he would do a lot of service. So it's a reality, you know. Some people need certain things. They need someone to pump them up a little bit. Some men need to be married. We all have different needs. And if these needs aren't fulfilled, sometimes it can create all kinds of trouble. And then we're throwing philosophy at these people, and it's not the problem. You know, it's like you're hungry, and I preach to you. You know, austerity is good. And actually, you know, why don't you just fast today? Because you don't really need to eat, you know. That's not really going to work. They just give him some prasadam and it's finished, you know. That's it. So it's a little bit like that. So that's been my experience. And that's why when people say, well, you don't need these other things, you just need to chant, that's fine if you can chant pure holy name. But at the same time, I don't think we can support from Shastra that chanting is actually can be considered a universal psychological tool that would heal every dysfunction and mental illness that a living entity has. It's not so to say, you know, chanting will solve everything. It'll solve every material contamination, that's for sure. It'll awaken your relationship with Krishna. But there's certain things it's not intended to do that we may need help with. Or it's certain things it may not be able to do until you're more pure. So you're not chanting purely, so it can't do it. It's a kind of dichotomy, right? You know, like this guy, he can't control himself sexually. But if I just chant purely like Thakur Hari does, then I'll be able to control myself. Great. But why? But due to the fact that you can't control yourself sexually, you can't chant like Thakur Hari does in order to chant purely enough to get that effect. So we have to help you in another way deal with that. And then you'll chant purely, and that will give you the strength to continue. So that's what I've seen. That's the report from the battlefield. So then what I did is I started incorporating some of these teachings, and I started with forgiveness. And I never knew what an epidemic forgiveness was in the world and in ISKCON. Devotees would tell me, I have issues with my guru, I have issues with Krishna, I got issues with every authority, GBC, temple president. It was like insane how deeply rooted these issues were. And so in the forgiveness workshop, we let them bring their issues out so they can work on them and heal them. And it was amazing. I was in shock of all so many senior devotees still had issues. Even issues with devotees who were dead that they didn't like. It was crazy. And then I would tell them, Prabhus, Matajis, or, well, I don't know if I said Prabhus and Matajis. I probably just said Prabhus. So I said, Prabhus. And all the Indian women will think, why are you calling us Prabhus? And all the American women are thinking, why are you calling us Matajis? So I addressed all the mamas and papas, and I said, do you believe in karma? Which, of course, like, why are you asking me? Of course I do. Then I said, well, if you believe in karma, why are you at a forgiveness workshop? Because you know everything that happens is a reaction to your activity. You shouldn't have anything to do with this. So that was a big eye-opener for me when I realized how pervasive the resentment issues were in the hearts of devotees. And most of it, maybe not most of it, but lots of it were pre-ISKCON days. It was parents, brothers, abuse that they, from family members and so forth. And now they're adults and they're carrying it with them. So you would think Krishna consciousness could solve that. And you would think, well, that's the philosophy. It's your karma, Prabhu, tough luck. You know, I got raped when I was a kid. It's your karma. You probably raped someone when you were a kid. That, when you were in your past life, that doesn't work. You know, it's an emotional wound and scar. And the philosophy doesn't heal it. It might heal it for some devotees, but for many devotees, the philosophy doesn't heal it. They know it's my karma. but still they're hurt, they're resentful. And so using what I knew about psychology and self-development and adding Krishna consciousness to it, I just developed like 30 steps so you could forgive. And everyone who went through it, it's very rare that someone would go through it and not let go. If they didn't let go, it's just like they didn't want to. They didn't think the person deserved it. But I would say 95%, 98% let it go. It was a process. And I figured out if you go through this process, you'll just let it go. But if you go back and look at the process, you'll say, well, each step was just an aspect of Krishna consciousness applied in a context that we don't normally apply it, right? Being compassionate towards the person who hurt you, that's a new concept. We're compassionate to the average guy in the street. That's easy. You don't know him. Oh, go out and distribute books. The movement of compassion. Yeah, it's easy to be compassionate to people you never met. How about compassionate to the guy who stole all your money or ran off with your wife? That's a different game. But when you're forgiving, that's an element. You have to have some understanding what that person was going through that they would do such a horrible thing. So we were starting to apply Krishna conscious principles in a completely different context than we were used to. But I had learned that. I learned how to take these things and broaden the context. So we would do a lot of exercises in compassion. Then another thing happened. This was amazing. When you have an issue, like an emotional issue like resentment, what you normally try to do is just suppress it, repress it, because you don't want to feel it because it's so painful. And so I realized that for many devotees, the way they deal with negative emotions is suppress or repress. They either don't want to feel it or they just think that's how you control it. If you just don't deal with it, you control it, right? Oh, I'm feeling resentful. Just don't feel it and pretend it's not there. It doesn't work like that. What I found is you have to feel it, you have to face it, and that's how you get through it. And that was a whole new realization for me, that you actually feel the emotion. Why should I feel resentment? Well, not that you should feel resentment, but you should feel what it's like to have resentment. So I asked all the devotees, what does your resentment feel like? I didn't ask them to feel resentment. I just said, what does it feel like to have it? And so everybody would come up with an analogy. Well, it feels like I'm carrying weights, or it feels like I have knives in my heart, or it feels like I'm drinking poison, or it feels like I'm giving birth, but I won't let the baby out, or it feels like I'm in prison. All these examples. And then I would ask them, I said, wow, that's amazing. Did you know you felt like this before? And they all say, I had no idea. I had no idea I felt like this. And I said, do you think it helps you to realize that this is what you're carrying? They said, oh yeah, now I realize what I'm carrying. And I was thinking, as devotees, we're kind of trained to suppress or repress because we think it's like you control the mind, so you control the emotion, you don't feel it. But then I realized it was just a lesson I never knew. You have to feel it to go through it. And then once you feel it and go, you can face it when you feel it. And the reason you don't face problems is because you don't want to feel them. Oh, Prabhu, can you do this? Oh, and it makes you feel bad. No, I can't. Can you talk to this devotee? No, I don't want to talk to them. Because there's all these negative feelings you don't want to face. But once you face them and talk to them and work through them, it's great. You work through the problem. It's very easy. That was my experience. So that was like major eye-opening for me. I think I had suppressed a lot of my emotions in the name of trying to control myself. And so I did a seminar, and at one time, it was so funny. They said, I forget the context. Maybe Brenda, you know, but we had to express something about how we feel. How do you feel about this? And you know what I said? Because I'm such an intellectual, I said, what do you mean by feeling? I was analyzing what it means to feel. And at that point, I realized, wow, I've been so much in my head, philosophy. I had to ask them, what does it mean to feel? As crazy as that sounds. And then I was looking at all the Prabhupada disciples in the seminar, and they all had the same problem. They didn't know how to feel. That was like they turned it off because that was like sense control. And so there was this whole world of emotions that was just like unknown to them, and creating all kinds of dysfunctions and not being able to express themselves in real ways, or to say I'm sorry, or to say I forgive you. that was very eye-opening. And when I had that realization, I think I'd been a devotee like 35 years. So I was realizing there's a part of this world in me that wasn't touched by bhakti. It was just, I needed somebody else to go in there. But because you're a devotee, once you find it and deal with it, you just apply that to your bhakti. So how could it not be Krishna conscious? Because you just use it to become more Krishna conscious, right? That's not Krishna conscious. Well, how could you evaluate what isn't or isn't? It's not sinful. It's not against our philosophy. So you can only evaluate it by how you use it, by the effect. And if the effect is good, then it's Krishna conscious, even though the process wasn't. Like, if I can help you forgive, I guarantee you, you'll be more Krishna conscious, even if I use a process that's not so Krishna conscious. Like if I say, just forgive because it'll make you feel good. Very selfish. But you do it, you get rid of the resentment, you'll be more Krishna conscious. Because resentment is all tamagun. So I just did an operation on you. I got rid of all the tamagun connected with the resentment. So you'll feel more Krishna conscious, even though the method might have been very personal. Let it go. You're harming yourself. You're harming yourself physically, emotionally, spiritually. Just let it go. Do it for yourself. You deserve it. But they don't deserve it. I know they don't deserve it, but you deserve to forgive them. Oh, okay. And then they do it. And like, how do you feel? Oh, I feel so much better. I'm so happy. Let's go out and preach. I'm excited. Let's do service. I'm serious. I'm serious. That's what happens. So I've seen this too many times to sit back and think, I don't need psychology. It's all a bunch of, this and that, new age, this and that. And I'm like, no, it's not, Prabhu. Open your eyes and look at the people who are joining today. They're coming from very troubled backgrounds, a lot of them, and they need more help. And unfortunately, it's not really what our mission was aimed to do. But now, everyone who's talking about devotee care is talking about social, physical, emotional, and spiritual, not just spiritual. Because it's synergistic, you're a whole person. You can't really do one without the other. That's my story. So, you want to ask questions? Or you want to argue?
And we can open it. We'll open it up for everyone too. I just wanted to share a recent reflection that I'm having, and you really sparked it.
I have this. All right, let me turn off my AC so I can hear you. And if I start to sweat and faint, I'll turn it back on. Okay, I can hear you. 65 decibels, that air conditioner.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You were speaking about just this idea of the Maha Mantra that, I'm having some psychological issues. So then it's like, well, just chant Hare Krishna, right? But it's like, and you kind of alluded to this. It's like, what does that actually mean? Like to chant purely, like what state that has, we have to be in. But I'm recently reading the Mahabharata, and there's that famous story where Arjuna and Krishna are fighting against Bhishma, and Bhishma's just laying it out on Arjuna. And Arjuna is holding back a little bit because of his, affection for his grandfather. And Krishna is thinking to himself, he's like, Arjuna's not going to do it. And Krishna had made this vow that he's not going to fight. So then he decides to break his vow and grab the chariot wheel to go attack Bhishma. And then Arjuna became morose and he went to grab Krishna because he didn't want Krishna to break his vow for his sake. So I was just thinking about that in terms of like, let me just throw my problems at the Maha Mantra and let the Maha Mantra fix it, rather than let me show up to the holy name with my junk taken care of so I can actually serve the holy name, not that the holy name is going to have to serve me.
That's a good point. It's an interesting point. I think also there's a balance there because you can't solve any problem without Krishna's help. That's for sure. But if you sit back and do nothing and just expect Krishna to do everything, that's also a problem. And certainly there are many problems that the holy name will solve. And my whole point is not to say that it won't and the process won't, but my point is when there are problems that you have that it hasn't, then it's wise to look at what else you can do, because you may not be in a state advanced enough to solve those problems, or they may not be problems that the process is meant to solve, or you may be your problems could be solved if they weren't so severe. So, there's a balance in there, right? Because there's also Draupadi, hands up, Krishna, I can't do it. So that's there also. But your effort is also there. And your intelligence is there about how to, you use your intelligence. Okay, I have this problem, what to do. I knew this devotee in LA, and he had a problem. I don't think it was drinking, I think it was smoking. So I said, why don't you go to some program to help you? He goes, no, just Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And he went on for 20 years, and he finally conquered it. I saw him, he moved to Alachua, I saw him last year. And I go, oh yeah, how you doing? He goes, I'm doing great, blah, blah. I said, you have that problem anymore? No, we conquered it. He did it through Krishna consciousness, but it took him 20 years. And that program might have taken him 3 months or 6 months. But he didn't want to do it because he didn't believe in it. So I don't think that's wise. I think, Krishna helping us also means giving us intelligence to do something that could help.
And even that example with Draupadi, it's not that was her first resort. She was holding on as tight as she could.
Yeah.
And then she was like, well, I'm powerless at this point. Oh, Govinda.
But it's interesting because that's the whole basis of the 12-step program is I'm powerless, and a power greater than me can conquer this addiction. I can't conquer it on my own. Mm-hmm. So it's firmly grounded in something which is Krishna conscious and God conscious, but they're steps and processes in place. I think some devotees just they're very concerned that if anything outside of Bhagavatam and Vedic culture comes in, it's bad. But a lot of times it's just our philosophy dressed in a different way or in a different context, and we don't recognize it. Or aimed for a specific problem that you don't get so much in our scriptures. They're not written that way. Like if you want to find out about forgiveness in our books, you're not going to go to the chapter on forgiveness, right? Because there isn't one. If you want it, there's no generally chapter on that one topic. Everything in the Vedas is in that topic. You have to actually do the work. And so that's what these programs do. They bring everything on a topic into one place, and it makes it easy to apply and understand. I don't think I think that's what we should be doing. Like I did with forgiveness. And then you realize, oh, there's so much there. I just didn't see it because I didn't have to put it in that context.
And I think Sarvatma Prabhu has a question, and as well as Maxwell. So Sarvatma Prabhu.
In the chat, or you want to ask it?
Sarvatma Prabhu, if you want, you can unmute yourself and go ahead and ask.
Okay. The question is, in order to enact these processes, and in order to, let's say you accept that you have problems, and,
yes.
And that there is a process, so-called outside of Krishna consciousness, in order to fix it, fix it from the root. Then there will be something else called trust that you need to actually, because we say there is no secrets in ISKCON. So if you actually open up to someone who may be qualified, that may become the laughing stock of others because you came out first. Also, the Dadati Pratiknati Guhyama Kyati Prichati is a direct instruction from Rupa Goswami. We should actually reveal our minds. But unless there is trust, how do you create that situation? Who do you choose, and how do you know you're not going to be again in the same situation, except that now you're going to be carrying the scarlet letter with you?
Well, I'll tell you a story. It's about 3 or 4 years ago. I ended up in Bangalore, and Jayadvaita Swami was there, and he was telling me a story about something he had told somebody, and he made the person promise to keep it confidential, and the person didn't. And then he said, I have observed in ISKCON there's no confidentiality, because whoever says they'll keep it confidential always tells somebody. If I say, Sarvatma, will you keep it confidential? In your mind, confidential might mean I just tell my wife. So and in her mind, it might be, I just tell my best friend, and her best friend in her mind, confidential. So I kind of understood that, but I never really thought about it until he talked about it. And then I realized that's so true. Our definition of confidentiality is just tell your wife. I only told my wife. Yeah, well, she only told her best friend, and her best friend only told her best friend and her best friend. That, 3 days later, you're a star on the internet. So, sometimes devotees say, I'd rather go to a therapist because they won't tell anybody, because it's their profession. I know, I won't tell anybody. Nobody knows me. This one devotee, she was having a hard time. It was an unfortunate situation, and devotees were turning against her. She said, I went to a church. It was so nice. Nobody knew who I was, and they all accepted me. So that's there. So what I've been doing, and I think we can do this with people we're confiding in, I've been trying to help devotees realize the definition of confidentiality is zero. You don't tell anybody. There's not one person you tell, because I think that's the problem. We think confidential means, of course, you're going to tell your husband or wife. Then one time, we have a group called Sabha, and we're sworn to confidentiality, at least on certain issues, until they're resolved. My wife said, I'm your wife. You have to tell me you don't love me if you don't tell me. There's something like that, it's like, we can't fall for that. I'm sorry, I can't tell you, it's confidential. So I've been trying to educate devotees that confidentiality means nobody hears it. And I think before you're going to be confidential, you want to be certain that that person knows what you expect and you can trust them. And I think it's something we need to talk about a lot with devotees, because we don't have a high level of confidentiality. And in the recovery programs, they say you're only sick as your secret. Like you have to, if you have a real difficult addiction or a real difficult problem that you can't solve on your own, you have to talk about it. Because if you don't talk about it, it just remains within you. And it's therapeutic to talk, as we all know, get it out in the open. But like you're saying, I can get it out of the open, and then all of a sudden, you go down to LA Temple and everyone's looking at you like you're a bum. It's like, what happened? What did I do? Oh, your therapist told us your story from when you were 11 years old and you did this. So we have to define what we expect in confidentiality, and then we have to be able to trust them. Otherwise, we'll have to go to some professional who we know is sworn to confidentiality. And then we have to practice it ourselves. And I would just say it's a real problem when we need to talk about it with any situation. Like when devotees ask me, can you talk about devotee care? One of the first things I say is listen in confidentiality. That's one of the greatest services you could do in devotee care, because we lack that, right? And let's say I tell you something, Sarvatma, about something I did like 30 years ago, and you're listening to it and you're going, oh my God, you're such a jerk. That's not how you listen. You just have to listen like, oh, that must have been really hard for you. You're not judging, you're not, expressing, disbelief or ghastly responses and so forth. And that's also something we have to learn. That's how you do it professionally. So if we can't do that, then guyam akyati prichyati, you can't do it. You'll just lie. These brahmacharis in India would come to me and they'd have problems, sexual problems. I said, well, why don't you talk about it with your brahmachari leader? And they said, I can't talk about it. He'll kick me out of the ashram. So we can't have a situation that's unsafe, that you have to talk what's in your heart and then you get judged and thrown out on the street. That's really unfortunate. We need that situation of confidentiality, and we need to be able to help. So
maybe just like when we consider going to college to be the slaughterhouse, and everybody in the movement thought that way, that
yeah,
if you go to school, you're going to be educated karmi, because you will never remain a devotee. Maybe now we should educate therapists to
Yeah,
deal.
we should. I
Should
think
be
that's really wise. You know, when young people are looking for an occupation, they should look for occupations in which they can serve the movement, for sure. I mean, I wish we had a therapist in every temple, because it would make my life a lot easier. I just go to your local therapist. Why are you coming to me? Then instead of getting 50 WhatsApp messages every hour and 50 emails every hour, I'd get like 3 an hour. Because, and you know, and it's like also the problem is like, if you come to me, I'm not a trained therapist. I can deal with some things, but certain things I'm not qualified to deal with. You don't need me. I mean, I can kind of understand what the problem is and what I can deal with, but you don't have trained professionals. Sometimes I've seen devotees, you know, they didn't want to go to therapists, and I said, just go. The one session that solved their problem. It was amazing. And I don't think we have many devotees in our movement that could have solved their problem, because they're not trained to deal with that. And so, you know, in business, you have to predict the future, what's going to happen, and then be prepared for it. I think we need to have more therapists in our movement. That's how we should prepare for the future, because they're going to be very busy. And more marriage counselors. I mean, look at the problem with marriage. We need more therapists and marriage counselors. And we need, as Jai Dvaita Swami said, we need more grandmothers. Grandmothers are wise and they listen and they don't judge. Because, you know, we grew up in the years of, you know, lots of judgment. You know, you remember the day, Sarvatma, what did it feel like the day you went from saffron to white? That was probably the most difficult day of your life, wasn't it? With all the looks and stares, like, what happened to you? Like you have some disease. Happened to me. It was like, then you know who your friends are. When you go from saffron to white, you really, because some people will just, they don't want to be your friend anymore. Did that happen to you, Ananda?
I didn't feel that from the general community, but I definitely got a comment here and there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think maybe the communities are more mature than when I put on white. It was like double take. He's wearing white. Like, oh my God.
So we have one question from Facebook, and then Maxwell had a question. So this is from Joseph Lakovos, I believe that's how you pronounce their name. Is that if someone committed a grave moral transgression against us, does forgiveness mean we have to trust the person who seriously harmed us ever again?
No. I could speak for a long time, but the short answer is forgive them, and you don't have to have a relationship with them if you don't want to. But the resentment is going to remain in your heart, so you want to get rid of that. But getting rid of the resentment doesn't mean you have to have the relationship. That's your choice. It may not be healthy. It may be or may not be. You decide.
Yeah. And then, yeah, wonderfully succinct and powerful. Maxwell Prabhu, you had a question? You can unmute yourself and go ahead. Oh, you're still muted, Max.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, this is my first time using Zoom, so I haven't really figured it out, but you can hear me. And I'm grateful to be here. Thank you for all the insights, and I just want to speak on what we're talking about, humility and the Maha Mantra. Of course, we don't count on Krishna to solve all our problems. We ask Krishna for guidance, and he shows us how to solve our problems. And so how I have learned use the Maha Mantra is that when I'm feeling upset or unstable, or maybe my thoughts are not, you know, for the benefit of maybe my partner or associates I'm working with, I'll chant the mantra quietly, very slowly. And in that I can gauge my anxiety, my stress or not. And if I feel it, then I go slower, and I keep slowing it down to the point where I finally feel at ease. And so that's one way the Maha Mantra prepares me to communicate. And so if I have a situation that I feel needs resolve, I can approach it calmly, thanks to the Maha Mantra, the way it just settles my heart. So I just wanted to share that, how You know, Krishna is saying, I give you the mantra.
On Zoom, a lot of people have
Oh,
a lot of ecstatic symptoms.
So thank you. Thank you for reflect on that.
Thank you. Yeah, the Maha Mantra is amazing. You can take shelter in the Maha Mantra. We're so fortunate to have it. Prem, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, Hare Krishna, thank you for the lecture. I have a reflection. I was listening what Ananda Murari said about Krishna, and there is something in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the first canto, 8th chapter, that Krishna said that was like an emergency. He said, but the emergency was more important than the vow. He's better known as Bhaktavatsala, or the lover of his devotee, and thus he preferred to continue as Bhaktavatsala than to be a worldly. I mean, can we apply this in our life? Devotees can like change things if they say something, if they took a vow, like for a higher purpose.
Yeah,
like as brahmanas, can we do this, or we must, you know?
Yeah, you have to know how to do it and when to do it and when not to do it. That's the problem. But you know, I always think if I advise somebody to do something, and sometimes I have, that on the surface it's not Krishna conscious, but it's going to help them become Krishna conscious, then I would advise them. Like this devotee girl is addicted to salsa. So she goes out dancing and her husband's like, I don't want to go salsa dancing. And I told him, you have to, because otherwise she's dancing with other men. So even though it's kind of like Maya, but it's less Maya than what's going to happen if he doesn't go. Right? I was speaking to another devotee, and she works in an industry she needs to be married because there's so many men in that industry trying to like have relationships with her. And she was thinking of being single all her life, but I said, no, you have to be married. I said, you think you could make it in that industry single? She said, probably not, but she'd like to try, but it's not healthy. So you have to, you judge every situation. So sometimes telling a person to do something that doesn't seem Krishna conscious ends up producing a Krishna conscious result. And that's what I look at. I mean, in the end, it's like the end of the life. Okay, you followed all these principles and you're going to take birth again. So what's the point? And you broke one principle and you're going back to Godhead. So it's better in my book, right? Yes? Good. Está bien. Está bien. Está. In Argentina, you say está. And in Mexico, they say está. Right? Está bien.
Está bien.
¿Más o menos? ¿Más o menos?
Está bien.
No entiendo nada español.
If there are any questions on Zoom or on Facebook, I didn't see anyone.
What about chat? Did you look at the chat? Is there anything on the chat?
Yeah, there's nothing else in the chat right now. Is there
Okay.
anything else in Zoom?
Hare Krishna.
Okay, well, if there's nothing else, Mahatma Prabhu, we'd love to have some kirtan from you. What I'll do is, before we start kirtan, actually, is I will put Prabhu's website as well as links to his book and a podcast that actually Harley organizes and helps put up daily classes on the podcast. So I'll put in some of these links.
Gauranga. Prema, where are you? Oh, you're in your living room. Oh,
Yeah, living room. We are working. Here is Premi.
So I can
She's
do
working.
kirtan, but it's just me and my keyboard. I don't know.
That sounds wonderful.
Hmm.
So devotees can look in the chat and you'll find a collection of various links that take you to Mahatma Prabhu's various offerings. The book that we mentioned, Living the Wisdom of Bhakti, is there, the Amazon link, as well as his personal website where you can find his other books. His Facebook, where he gives daily classes Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern time,
Govinda.
and his YouTube channel as well. So if you're interested in continuing the stream of nectar, you can follow it there. And we'll have some kirtan and we'll end the Sunday feast. Thank you everyone for being with us. And thank you again for Mahatma.
Okay, it's the one-man band. The COVID one-man band. It's hard, you know, we do kirtan every Sunday. It's hard to get devotees together. So hold on, I have my backup band here, my keyboard, if we need it. Just before class, I was recording the Shishastakam in English, 2 verses. It's really beautiful. Havi played the keyboard. It's really nice. And you'll get to hear it someday. I'm not sure when. It's the hassle to mix it. But, so, if I'm going to sing this loud, can you hear the keyboard? Is it loud enough? It's okay?
Sounds good.
Krishna Krishna Hare Hare. It's okay? What?
One thing you can do possibly is I figured this out on Zoom. If you go to the little microphone icon at the bottom left of your screen and you click the arrow,
Okay.
you go to audio settings
In the bottom, yeah.
and then go to advanced.
I think I'm already on advanced. Oh, no, I'm not. Okay, go to advanced.
And then disable both suppress persistent background noise and suppress intermittent background noise. Disable both of those.
Oh, it's like a compressor.
Yeah, and that'll make all the sound a lot cleaner. You'll be able to hear everything better.
I didn't know. Echo cancellation also?
No, leave that on auto.
So what's this suppress persistent? That's like, it's got like a built-in compressor.
Pretty much, yeah, and so then it allows just voices to come through without a lot of background, but then when you're playing music, it
Okay, how did this sound? Sri Krishna Chaitanya. So every time I go into Zoom, I have to do that setting, or it's set permanently now?
It should be set permanently now.
Oh, wow.
They're loud. The keyboard is louder than your voice.
Krishna Krishna Hare Hare. Keyboard's louder?
The keyboard's louder than your voice.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Better?
Lower.
Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram.
That's
Better? It's funny, I don't play keyboard, so it's just kind of a joke that I'm playing, but I can get by. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasaya Bhutale Sri Mate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nevises Sunyavari Paschacharistrane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Advaitananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Time to dance. Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna One more time, everyone together. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, And now, what I've been doing often is singing Shishastakam in English to the melodies that I do kirtan. So can I do that for you? Is that okay? and tears are flowing like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world. You want to try it? Without you, Lord, the moment feels like a million years or more. And tears are flowing like torrents of rain, and I'm feeling all vacant in the world. One more time, we can try. Without you, Lord, the moment feels like a million years or more. Tears are flowing like torrents of rain. I'm feeling all vacant in the world. Do another verse. When will my eyes be decorated with tears of love? And when will my voice choke and hair stand on at the recitation of your name? Oh, when will my eyes be filled with tears? And when will my voice choke? And when will my hands stand on at the recitation of your name? One more mantra. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. I go permanently.
Hare Krishna.
Want me to play you one more on my guitar? Do we have time?
It is 6:30, so I mean we can continue. But yeah, please do, Prabhu.
No, I'll do 5 minutes. Just what I was just starting to I recorded one thing today, earlier, and then I was just starting to record something. Then hubby came over and he brought me a MIDI keyboard and we hooked it up and it actually works, kind of, sort of. So I didn't get to do it, but I'll play you. Did I play this song when I was in Denver? The
You may,
Shishastakam?
you may have played a version.
What?
I thought you played a version one day.
Yeah, let me play a few. Let me play these two. Let me play these two verses that I just sang. I don't know how it's going to work on this mic because you may not pick up the guitar that well because it's very directional. Have a better mic. I'm going to plug in my better mic. Hold on, excuse me for any pops and noises. But this will be better for the guitar. Ah! This is actually a guitar mic, which sounds really good on voices also. Can you tell the difference? Krishna Krishna Hari Hari.
I'm wondering, Prabhu, if you have Zoom connected to that mic or not. It doesn't seem like it's connected.
It's not coming through?
Well, I think you can go also into the audio again.
Krishna Krishna Hari Hari. Now it's too loud. You don't hear anything?
No, I mean, we hear you, but I'm just wondering because we don't hear the difference with the mic.
Oh. That's because maybe your headphones can't tell the difference. Or you're hearing from your speakers on your computer. You may not hear the difference, but it'll pick up the guitar better.
Okay.
Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda. Okay, right back.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna. If I was really prepared, I would have done the backup on the keyboard. Then we could have played the keyboard as background. All right, tell me if you, tell me how this sounds with voice and guitar. Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. The guitar too loud? Without you, Lord, a moment feels like a million years. And tears are flowing from my eyes just like torrents of rain. And I'm feeling all vacant in the world without you, Lord. I'm feeling all vacant in the world without you, Lord. And I'm feeling all vacant in the world without you, Lord. I am feeling all vacant in the world without you, Lord. You can't see what I'm playing. So it's G. It goes. The verse goes G and to E minor. And the chorus is C, G, E minor, C. Repeats it. Okay? Try it again. Without you, Lord, a moment feels like a million years. A million years. And tears are flowing from my eyes just like torrents of rain. And I'm feeling all vacant in the world without you, Lord. And I'm feeling all vacant in the world without you, Lord. I'm feeling all vacant in the world without you, Lord. I'm feeling all vacant in the world without you, Lord. Without you, Lord. So we'll do another verse. This next verse, it's a prayer to have some taste for chanting. It's a prayer to be able to feel something when we chant. Sounds okay? When will my eyes be decorated with tears of love? And when will my voice choke? When will my head stand on? At the recitation of your holy name. 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 Oh, just lost my pick. Anyway, there's one verse I really like, and it's totally depressing. Well, I don't want to depress you, but I will, in a good way. I just have to remember the words. Let's see if we can do it. Holy name can render blessings on all living names. And you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. Just next part is really heavy. But I'm so unfortunate that I have no taste. I'm so unfortunate that I have no taste. I am so unfortunate that I have no taste. I am so unfortunate that I have no taste for your holy name. So we'll sing that once more. Totally depress you, but maybe it'll inspire you. Your holy name can render blessings on all living beings. And you have hundreds of names, like Krishna and Govinda. Everyone sing. But I'm so unfortunate that I have no taste. 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 Your holy name, holy name, your holy name. I have no taste. Have no taste, no taste for your holy name. It's a heavy verse, and it's true, and that's why it's heavy. Hare Krishna. Gauranga. And there's one more really cool thing you may want to do. I don't know if we did this in Denver, but this chord progression I was playing, G, C, G, E minor, C. There's the coolest song ever, these chords. And it really sounds good, so I'm on the piano. Radharani, oh Radharani, Radharani, oh Radhe Radhe. This is Sri Radha, this is your song. Radharani, 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 oh Radhe Radhe. Everybody, let's do it. Radharani, oh Radharani, Radharani, oh Radhe. Now part two picks up. Radharani, 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 Radhe, Radhe, Radharani, last part. Radhe, 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 oh Radhe, 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 Radhe. And you're all going to sing harmony, okay? Radhe, Radhe. And you're going to sing Radhe, 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 Radhe. Radhe, Radhe. You sing the harmony and I'll sing the lower part. Radhe, Radhe. Radhe, Radhe. Radhe, Radhe. Oh, Radhe, Radhe. One more time. Radhe, Radhe. Definitely have to record that one. Radhe, Radhe, Radhe. We played this at a concert in Mexico City, and then we played it again in Colombia. People went completely nuts. They didn't know what was happening to them. And they were getting Radharani's mercy. They were going crazy. And after this boy came up and he said, that Radharani song, he said, I never experienced anything like that. Radharani, 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 Radhe, Radhe. Jai. Haribol. Okay, it was nice seeing you all. I have many more songs, but for another time.
Thank you, Prabhu. We're looking forward to seeing you again very soon and seeing you in person.
Yeah. When the world clears up. Right now in Europe, they're doing all kinds of programs.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Check your chat. I sent you a private message.
You know this song? When you feel like the world has you down on the ground, and it's hard to face another day. When everywhere you look, you can't find an answer, it's time to throw your hands up and say, you heard that song before? Radhe, Sham, Sham, Radhe, Sham, Sham, Radhe, Sham, Sham, Radhe, Sham, Sham. Amazing song. You gotta hear it. It's on the internet with the video if you want to hear it. Radhe Sham. Look up Radhe Sham Mahatma Das. It's a great song. It should have gone viral. It didn't. I'll probably be famous after I die, but Krishna's keeping me humble. Hare Krishna. Nice to see all of you. We'll see you again.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Bol. Jai Prabhupada.
Thank you, devotees. Jai Shri Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Haribol. Nice to see you.